So for this project, you will need DK weight yarn, a 6.5 millimeter Tunisian crochet hook with a 16-inch cable. Now the cable will change depend on what size you're making, but for the size medium, the 16-inch was just fine. I also used a 6.5 millimeter regular crochet hook for the neckline, but you are free to use the regular Tunisian crochet hook if you'd like, stitch markers, and scissors. A little bit about this yarn that I'm using. I am using a yarn from the Frosted Stitch called Fallout. This is a 75% superwash merino yarn and 25% nylon yarn. It's DK weight, and this is about 245 yards per 100 grams. So for this yarn, because this is has wool in it, there's going to be a lot of stretch and give, which means that the 6.5 millimeter hook is going to be fine, because when I go ahead and I block this, it'll open up a lot. If you are using an acrylic yarn, you are probably going to need to size up on your Tunisian crochet hook, because acrylic yarn doesn't have the stretch and give that wool does. So for this pattern, for the size medium, I made a chain of 87, and then I picked up a loop in each of the back bumps, and then I did my standard return pass. This is how we start the Tunisian knit stitch. If you're not familiar, I'll put a link below that teaches you how to do the setup rows for the Tunisian knit stitch. I've done that for the Tunisian knit stitch, but this is actually also very similar to what we need to do for the Tunisian simple stitch or most other Tunisian crochet patterns. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start the rib border. To do that, we're actually going to do a Tunisian purl stitch. The purl stitch is a little bit different in that we're going to bring our yarn to the front. I like to put it below the hook, and then we're going to pick up like we would for a simple stitch. You'll see that the yarn kind of pops around, and then you're going to yarn over and pull up a loop just like that. Then we're going to alternate and go do 2 Tunisian knit stitches. So that's 1, and then go through both the front and back vertical bars just like that. And we're going to do just the 2 Tunisian knit stitches. Then we're going to do a purl again. So bring your yarn to the front, bring around your hook, go in like you would for a simple, yarn over, and pull up a loop just like that. And at first it's not going to seem like we're doing much, but as you do the 5 rows that you need for the rib border, you'll see how it works. So now 2 Tunisian knit stitches, so all the way back and front, just like that, Tunisian knit, and then we're back to our purl. So I'm going to go around here and then pick up a stitch just like that. So I'm going to continue this to the end, then do my standard return pass, and then I'm going to do this for several more rows, and I'll write the exact amount in the pattern, but this is going to give us the ribbed border bottom of the sweater. Once I get to those X amount of rows, I'm only going to do Tunisian knit stitches all the way up until I get to the area that we need to do the V-neck split. So after finishing my 5 rows of the ribbing with the alternating purl and 2 knit stitches, I went straight into the Tunisian knit, which I'm going to continue up until I get to the next part of the top. So I've reached the neckline divide for this part of the pattern. The pattern has an odd number of rows, so there's a center stitch that I've put a stitch marker on. I'm about 3 stitches before the center of the stitch marker, and I'm going to show you how we're going to be working the decreases to get the V-neck. So to do that, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a Tunisian knit stitch 2 together. So to do that, I'm going to pick up my stitch like I would for a simple stitch, and then I'm going to go into the next stitch like I would for a knit stitch. I'm going to yarn over and pull up a loop just like that. So now I've used up these 2 stitches. I have 1 more stitch before my stitch marker. I'm just going to go ahead and do a normal knit stitch, and now I want to make sure that this is nice and snug, because if it's not snug, you're going to have gaps in your pattern. In the center stitch, I'm going to go ahead and work it just like I would for a knit stitch. Now we're going to go ahead and get rid of this stitch, and how we're going to do that is I'm going to work a knit stitch in the next one, and when I pull it up, I'm going to pull it through that center loop. So now this center stitch doesn't have a stitch above it anymore. We've done basically a decrease in that section. Now we're going to move on to the next part, and I want to also make sure that this is nice and tight. And I'm going to go through like I would for a Tunisian simple, and then into the next stitch like a Tunisian knit, and do that decrease so that we get, we're going to start to part right here. It's going to open up. So I'm going to keep doing knit stitches. So I've already done this stitch. I'm going to go into the next stitch and pick up a knit stitch. And I'm going to do this until I get to the end. So now what's actually happening is I'm going to be ignoring the first half of this pattern where that decreases, and then I'm going to come back to it after I finish building this up. So the way that I'm going to do that is you have a couple of options. I'm just going to go ahead and slide this all the way off and then pull up my stopper. And we're going to just kind of group this all together, and we're going to ignore it. If you find that this is inconvenient and it's going to bother you, go ahead and undo this part and put a stopper here at this end, and then attach another cord to this end, and that way you just have the stoppers on this and that won't go anywhere. But I'm just going to push it to the side here and pretend like it's not there for the rest of this portion, and come back. So what we're going to do now is we're going to just do the knit stitch all the way to the end, do our return pass, and then we'll always do our decreases here on these 2 stitches. And what I'll do is I'll go ahead and finish working this row and the return pass, and then come back and show you again how to do the next set of decreases. So I'm just getting here to my last return pass stitch. I'll make sure again that that's nice and tight. And then I'm going to go ahead and, so my return pass stitch is this one, and the next one next to it, I'm going to do the Tunisian simple stitch, and then immediately the Tunisian knit stitch to do the decrease, just like that. And we're going to continue working it up this way for the pattern. And you can see how I've just left this part here on the kind of pushed to the side, and like I said, we'll come back to it after we finish this part of the neckline. So that's how you do the decreases for this portion, this side of the V-neck. Once I finish this, I'll get to a point and I'll show you where we're going to stop. Then I'll go ahead and come back and show you how we're going to work this. So I reached the stopping point for the neckline. I did the decreases for 12 rows, and then I went ahead and just worked straight up, and you can see from this half of the neckline how that's going to look. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my slip stitch bind off for this part, and then we're going to continue on with the return pass here. So you can see I never removed the cord. I just kind of shoved everything over here, and it worked just fine. What that's going to do is it's going to let me just go right back to this section and start working with my return pass without having to worry about changing cords or having 2 cords. So I'm here right now. Get a little bit more yarn, and we're going to do the slip stitch bind off as we would for a Tunisian knit stitch. So we're going to go ahead, go in just like we did for that one center stitch, pull up, and then pull through. So at this point we'll have only one live loop on our hook as we go through the bind off. So 1, and get right in there, and I'm going to keep going like this. When I get to the last stitch, I'm going to do the last Tunisian stitch as I would do for like normal, but I will then do the bind off part of it. So remember to go through both vertical bars here at the end, and then do your bind off stitch. So I'll finish this, and then I'll meet you back and show you how we're going to do the other half of the neckline. So I've just pulled the hook back to the other side of the V-neck, and I'm going to grab my yarn, and we're going to go ahead and just do our return pass as normal. So I'm going to just pretend like I'm changing colors, and I'm going to just yarn over, pull through one, because this is now our ending stitch. Yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2. And I'm just going to do that all the way back to the end. And then when I get to this ending section on the next forward pass, I'll meet you back and show you what to do next. So I'm here now to our last 3 stitches, 1, 2, and 3, and I'm going to show you what I'd like you to do for this next step. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and do a Tunisian crochet, 2 knit stitches together. So pick up like a symbol, then go in like a knit into the next stitch, yarn over and pull through. And then we're going to come over to our stitch here. Now this stitch you can see is kind of stretched out. What we're going to do is go through both loops. We're going to act like they're both our last Tunisian stitch. And I'm going to yarn over and pull up a loop just like that. And then we'll go ahead and we'll weave this in and it should be just fine. So I'm going to do the return pass. And then for the next several rows, just like to mirror what I did on this side, I'm going to, on the forward pass, when there's 3 stitches left, I'm going to do a Tunisian 2 knit stitches together like I showed you, pick up the last stitch and go back. We're going to do that for several rows, just like we did here. And then eventually we'll just straighten up and go straight up. So I'll keep working on that. And then when that's finished, I'm going to make a back panel just like I did for the front panel, except without the V. And I'll show you what little changes will be in that panel compared to the front as soon as I finish this. And then I'll show you how to join, and then we'll do the sleeves. So I'm going to keep working on this and I'll meet you back for the next step. So I've now come to the portion of the back panel where we're going to do something similar like what we did with the front panel, where we're going to make a separation, and we're going to work up 5 rows to make a little indent for our neck. So I've gone ahead and placed 2 stitch markers at the same length that I have for my my neck opening on the front panel. So for the size medium or the size 3, I've gone ahead and picked up 31 stitches, and I have 32 here. This is my 32nd stitch, and then counting 31 stitches from the back here, this is also stitch number 32 from the back, and I believe this is about 25 stitches in between, but the pattern will definitely have all the accurate measurements for all the sizes. So I have 31 stitches, and what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go ahead and pick up that 32nd stitch, and then I'm also going to pick up the next one right here. But I'm going to go ahead and pull it back through there because we're doing a slip stitch bind off. So now there is no stitch above the 32nd stitch. I'm going to continue doing my slip stitch bind off just like that until I get to the other stitch marker, and I'll meet you back and show you how to do that. So I'm getting to the area where my stitch marker is, and I'm going to continue doing the slip stitch bind off. I'm now in the stitch over the stitch marker, and for the next one we're going to do, we've been doing just a regular slip stitch bind off here. We didn't do it as for a knit stitch because we're going to be putting in a border here, so it doesn't matter. It's probably going to be easier to put the border in with just a regular slip stitch bind off. But now that I'm getting to the next stitch after the stitch marker, I'm going to go ahead and do a knit stitch and then do a Tunisian knit stitch bind off for that one. And then we'll just, now you can see we don't have a stitch marker over, we don't have a stitch over the stitch with the stitch marker, and now we're just going to continue doing the Tunisian knit stitch till the end. So just like we did for the front panel, we're going to go ahead and ignore everything that's here, and we'll come back to it after we've done the 5 rows here and done our bind off, but this time we'll do the bind off as for a Tunisian knit stitch, just like we did with the front panel. So I'm going to go ahead and continue picking up a stitch, and when I'm done with both of these sides, I'm going to get my front panel and seam them together, and I'll meet you back to show you how to do that. So I've already seamed up one side. I have the wrong sides facing each other. I'm gonna go ahead, and I left a very long tail when I finished the last 5 rows of the back panel. And I'm going to go ahead and align these up. Remember, wrong side facing wrong. And if you see how it looks like the thread is here on the right side, I'm just going to slip it through so it comes up on the wrong side. And you can stitch this up however you want. You can use your crochet hook. You can go ahead and do whip stitches or mattress stitches. I'm just going to do it across, kind of over the top, just like that. Just lining them up. And because of, if you look on the inside, there's this really pretty chain. It's going to create a really nice textural effect on the shoulders by doing it this way. So I'm just going to finish this up. I'm going to keep going till the end, and then I'll fasten off. Then I'm going to show you, we have 2 things left to do. We have to do the sleeves, and we have to do finish up cleaning up the neckline. I'll finish this, and then I'll meet you back to show you those 2 things. So I've gone ahead and finished my seaming here, and what we're going to do now is we're going to be working into one corner here, and we're going to work into the neckline and clean up this neckline a little bit. Now I've switched to a 6.5mm crochet hook, but you absolutely could just continue using your Tunisian crochet hook. The reason I'm switching is because I don't want to disconnect the cable, so just to make it a little bit easier. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the top corner here, and I'm going to go ahead and we'll slip stitch. We'll go ahead and we'll slip stitch right in there, and then we're just going to single crochet into these really nice easy to see last Tunisian stitches, just like that. So you're going to keep that nice and tight, and we'll go across, and you can see how it's creating a nice clean little border there. If you find that this is too loose and you don't like how it looks, go down half a hook size or a hook size depending on your preference. But if we keep these nice and tight, it should be just right. So I'm going to keep going, and when I get to the V, I'll meet you back and show you what to do next. So we are now coming to this middle area, and I can see where my last Tunisian stitch is here because that's where I made the attachment. I'm going to go ahead and pick up a loop just like I would for single crochet, but we're about to do kind of a modified single crochet 3 together. Then I have this middle stitch here, and you're welcome to leave the stitch marker on because, as you can see, there are a bunch of stitches there to make sure you know which one. And we're going to yarn over, and again, keeping really good tension, nice and tight, we're going to pick up a loop. Now, this is my first Tunisian stitch, and you can see how there's a pattern here. We want to have a similar pattern on this side. They aren't symmetrical because this is a first Tunisian stitch and this is a last Tunisian stitch. So we're going to kind of see if we can make that match. What we're going to do is we're going to pick up the back loop only of that side stitch. So pick up that back loop, and then when you turn your work over, you're going to see that there are rows that go along with each stitch, and you're going to anchor that stitch into the into one of the stitches in the back row. So I can see here there's a stitch right there that I think looks pretty good, so I'm going to go ahead, and it's going to be a little bit snug, but we're going to go ahead, yarn over, pull up a loop, and now I want to just take a second and make these all nice and tight because this is where my V is going to be. And I'm going to yarn over and pull through all 4 stitches just like that. And we're going to keep that nice and snug, and we're going to move on to the next one. So pick up that back loop only, and then pick up the stitch right behind it. If you need to help it a little bit. Go ahead, pull that up, make sure it's nice and tight, and single crochet. Next one, same thing. And these are really nice and snug, these little side loops here. We're going to go ahead and do that, and I'll show you again one more time. So I'm picking up this loop, and then in the row, so this is a loop I'm going to pick up. Let me get my little needle. This is the loop I'm going to pick up. Nope, sorry. This is the loop I'm going to pick up right here. And this is the row I'm going to anchor it to, just like that. So for this one, it can be right here. And so I'm going to keep doing that. And what it's going to do is it's going to kind of give us a little bit of a symmetry here with that edge. It'll make it nice and pretty. So pick up that stitch and then pick up your anchor stitch from the row behind, and they are snug like I said, but that's good because it's going to keep it nice and tight. If you don't do this, you're going to have a very loose stitch and it's not going to look symmetrical at all. It's still not perfectly symmetrical, but it's pretty good by doing this. So I picked up my stitch and then I'm going to go and find my little anchor stitch back here and get that on there and give it a little help if you need to. The pointiness of the Tunisian crochet hook may actually work better here. And keep going. And you can see how it's giving it kind of a similar braided look as to what we have here. And it's not really loose. If you don't do this, like I said, you're going to end up with a very loose stitch. So just to show you, if I go right into the stitch only, it becomes very loose and there's a large gap. So we don't want that. Trust me, it will not look pretty. So grab this and then grab a stitch right behind it just to anchor it, just like that. And then we're going to pull up a loop and then pull through 2 for a single crochet. So you only need to do that until you get to the straight edging, and then we'll go back to our normal single crochet. So I'm going to keep working this, and then I'm going to work around the edge, and I'll meet you when I get to that corner. So now I've reached the corner here, and I'm going to go ahead and I have 2 stitches left on this row. I'm going to go ahead and do a single crochet 3 together. So this was the second to last stitch and then the last stitch of the row, and then I've hit the corner, and I'm going to go ahead and pick up a stitch, and I'm going to pull through all 4 loops just like we did for the V-neck there. Now I'm going to go ahead and we're going to be working into the top chains here of the simple stitch that we did, and I'm going to yarn over, and it's going to be a little bit snug, but that's okay, and just pick up a stitch just like this. If you decided to do the Tunisian knit stitch bind off, you could you would have that chain in the back just like you do on the sleeves, which I'll show you in a second. And it would give you a different effect. So here's the chain that we have on top of the sleeves, and you could very well do that here instead of having the knit stitch bind off. So I'm going to continue doing this at the other corner. When I have 1 stitch left, I'll do my single crochet 3 together, and then I will continue on till I meet the other part, and then we're done with the neckline border. The next step is going to be the sleeves. So we are now going to begin the sleeve portion of the sweater, and what I've done is I've gone ahead and put a stitch marker starting from here, 36 stitches over this way and 36 stitches over this way. This is again for a size medium with about an 8-inch or a 16-inch armhole opening just like this. Now there's 2 ways to do this. If you want a straight boxier sleeve, you're going to go ahead and just work straight across without doing any decreases. But because I want more of a tapered sleeve, I'm going to do decreases at both ends after the first row. So I'm going to get my yarn set up, and then I'll come back and show you how to pick up the stitches for the sleeve. So here is the first stitch marker, and I'm going to go ahead and put my hook in along with my yarn. Let me get a little bit more yarn, and I'm going to go ahead and just slip stitch right in there, and then just chain 1 and go ahead and pull this nice and tight so it doesn't come loose. And now I'm just going to go ahead, this will count as my first Tunisian stitch, and then in each stitch I'm going to go ahead, yarn over, pull up a loop just like that. we're just working along into the side of the stitch and picking up loops. So I'm gonna go like this all the way across. And when I get to the center part, I'll show you what to do next. So I'm here at the center area, and this joining does not count as a stitch. So make sure you don't create an extra stitch by going in there. So I'm gonna go ahead, pick up a loop, and I wanna have nice tension here, and I'm gonna go right into the next stitch. And again, pick up a loop, and making sure that I have nice tension here. I don't want any gaps or spaces in this area. And then I'm going to keep going till the end, and I'll do my return pass, and then I'll show you how we are going to do the decreases. So I just finished the return pass for row 1, and now we're going to go ahead and start with our decreases. So to do the decrease, we're going to do it just like we did for the neckline. So we're going to do a Tunisian crochet 2 together. I'm going to lift up as for a simple stitch, but then go into the next stitch like a knit stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. And I'm going to keep that loop on my hook as I go. So I'm going to continue doing this till the end, and then I'll show you how we do the decreases at the other end of the row. So I'm coming up on my last 2 stitches here, and I'm going to go ahead and, or last 3 stitches. So I have my last Tunisian stitch here and then 2 stitches right in front, and I'm going to do the decrease right here too. So I'm going to pick up like for a simple stitch, but then go into the next one as for a knit stitch and pick up a loop, and that's my decrease. Then I'm going to turn to the side and do my last Tunisian, and then I'm going to just do my return pass. So a couple of things about the sleeves. So for the sleeves, you're going to be doing 7 rows total. These are kind of short half sleeves or cap sleeves. The first row, there is no decreases. Rows 2 through 6, you'll be doing a decrease on each end. Now, it's really important that when you're doing the decreases, that you do them in rows of 3. So you wouldn't be able to do decreases for just 2 rows or 4 rows. You have to do either decreases for 3 rows or decreases for 6 rows. And I'm going to be doing the decreases for the 6 rows. The reason for that is once we're done with the decreases, we're going to go ahead and do the ribbed border like we did here at the bottom, but we're only going to do 4 rows of that. So I'm going to show you on the other side, because that sleeve is done. Let me just move this there so I don't lose my place, what the sleeve is going to look like when you are finished. So here's the sleeve with the tapered edge. So again, we did every row for a tight sleeve after the first row of decreases. So rows 2 through 7 each have decreases. Then I went straight into 4 rows of my ribbed border, and then again, because I want that really pretty braid here, I did my bind off as for a Tunisian knit stitch, just like that. So I'm going to go ahead, finish up the other sleeve. I've already seamed up the side here, so I'm going to do the same thing on the other end, and then that'll be it. We'll be finished with our top. So this is the final product. You can see the neckline. It is really important to do those special or anchored back loop only single crochets to get it to match up perfectly. Just because of how Tunisian crochet is different on the beginning side versus the last side. You can see we have our edging here with that Tunisian knit stitch bind off that gives us that pretty braided edge, and here's how our sleeve looks, and this is with the decrease, and you can see the angle that it comes up into. I hope you really enjoyed this tutorial. This was definitely a labor of love to get this neckline to work out. There's going to be more information on my blog about where you can purchase this pattern, as well as information about the yarn and yarn amounts. And if you like this video tutorial, please give this a thumbs up. Also, please do subscribe. It really does help to grow my channel. Thank you, and happy crocheting.